Welcome, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is not an orientation. It's actually an open house for the APR. My name is Michael Henry. I'm a technical facilitator with the APR online study course. We're going to talk today, about your process for getting your APR. We're going to talk about the details of the application and details of the process for getting your APR, but also we're going to focus on your individualized learning plan, because frankly, every one of you comes to the APR from a different perspective with different skill sets, and we understand that. So we've developed the APR online study course to address individual your individual process to getting your APR. So um, we'll just continue. And one of the things we're going to do is to keep you engaged in a web meeting. We know that sometimes it's difficult to stay engaged in a web meeting. So what we have is a Slido interaction. So we'd like you to go ahead and scan the QR code or go to slido.com, go to the and enter the code APRPREP, all capital letters. And what that will do is it will give you the possibility of asking questions throughout the meeting. In addition, we'll be able to put those questions on the screen for you. So we're going to go ahead and continue with this and introduce our panel. Of course, I'm Michael Henry, the technical facilitator. I'm going to actually start with Amanda. Amanda, would you introduce yourself, share just a little bit about yourself, and also maybe one tip on getting the APR?
Hi, everybody. My name's Amanda Rowe, and I got my APR certification, oh my gosh, 8 years ago, I think. I don't know, pre-pandemic. And I've had the pleasure of working in marketing communications and specifically focusing on public relations and global communications. And one of the things that I felt that it helped me do was have that beautiful combination of my gut instincts of what I knew just from experience and what I had witnessed and what I had learned throughout my career, but combining that with the discipline of what formally needs to be done. So through the APR process, it enabled me to kind of marry those two parts of what I was doing beautifully. And for me, the one tip I would say is really to pace yourself, but hold yourself accountable. And I know everybody says that, but for me, what that looked like was actually scheduling myself time. I think as adults, many of us raise children or are raising children, and we are really good at scheduling other people. But as parents, we often put ourselves last. And so making sure that you schedule that time, even if it's just for 45 minutes to read or reread, and having that regular time not only sets that muscle memory within you and your schedule, but also within your family and people around you. So that was really the biggest tip that I had as far as what made it successful and made that big mountain climbable. So
Excellent. And we're going to talk a little bit about accountability and how some tools that we have in the APR online study course for accountability. And I'd like to also introduce on our panel is Kathy Mulvihill, Accreditation Manager. Kathy, go ahead and introduce yourself. We met, gosh, almost 20 years ago now when the course was
Yes,
early starting. Go ahead and introduce
yes,
yourself.
absolutely. Michael and I are old friends. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. As Michael said, my name is Kathy Mulvihill. I'm the accreditation manager for PRSA. I'm the day-to-day manager as well as the liaison between the Universal Accreditation Board, which oversees the APR program. I've been with PRSA for, gosh, 25 plus years. So Any question that you might have, I've probably heard of at least once or twice. Amanda, I was glad to hear that you were joining because for some reason, I remember your process going through. I don't know if it was your last name, the first name, but I do remember you. So it's good to see your face, and apologies to everyone. My video is not working properly, so I'm just going to be on audio for you.
That's fine, Kathy, and we're really happy to have you here. I want to tell people that this is a really great treat to have Kathy Mulvihill in this meeting. Kathy obviously is the accreditation manager. I frequently get questions that are handled by Kathy. So instead of me sending you to Kathy, she's here with us in this meeting.
And
So our
absolutely, I'll
agenda,
be monitoring the chat too as well, Michael. So
excellent. Feel free to post comments in the chat, but also you can click on the QA function in Slido and post those questions in Slido. We learn from each other, so I encourage you to do that. So we've done our introductions. We're also going to talk a little bit about the professional development process, which is the APR, why the APR is important. We'll also talk about the examination process and then your individualized learning plan, how you can create that personal accountability, but then also find ways to keep you accountable to your APR goal. Frankly, I know a lot of people who want to get their APR. They log into the online study course, and if they don't continue, you really are not prepared to take the APR examination. So we bug people, and that's part of my job, is to bug people in the APR online study course to keep you accountable. We'll also talk about the foundation of the APR examination, which is the KSAs, the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required, that are basically the foundation of the APR itself. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Study resources, the study guide, the study tips, and also the APR online study course. And then we'll get to your questions as we go forward. And I'm going to ask Kathy to comment on this, but I have to say that what we do in the online study course is we took each of the KSAs and found activities to help you visually, in a scenario base, understand what these KSAs are all about. They are the foundation of the examination. And Kathy, would you share just a little bit about that process, because it's an ongoing process?
yes, absolutely. KSAs stand for Knowledge, Skills, and Abilities. So if you're studying for APR, get used to that acronym, KSA. Each of the KSA areas are broken down into how much each is tested on the exam. I think that's going to be a little bit later. But the exam itself was built on a practice analysis that we started way back in 2000, and we update it every 5 years. And it's research based. Of course, we did qualitative work, we did quantitative work, surveys, focus groups. All of that should be familiar to you as you study through the process. And our last practice analysis was just done last year. So after the practice analysis, we look at the results of the survey and the focus groups, and we modify the exam slightly based on that information. So what we see on the screen right now is how much of the exam is tested in each of the KSA areas. So for instance, RPIE, which is Research, Planning, Implementation, and Evaluation, or RPI, another acronym, is 30% of the exam. So the most questions you'll get is in the RPI process. And then you'll see the percentages as you go down: leading the PR function, managing relationships, ethics and law, managing issues and crisis communications. And then of course, the last one, models, theories, and history.
That's fantastic. And what we do in the online study course is help you explore all of those KSAs for your own professional development. One of the secrets to getting the APR is really finding ways to apply the KSAs to your practical situation. And frankly, I'm going to bring Amanda in here after we finish this. One of the things we try to do is to ask you to apply what you're learning to your professional situation And what that does is it helps you understand the questions on the examination. So I'll ask Amanda about that in a little bit. These are the 4 steps to getting your APR. The first is explore what the exam is all about. So each one of you is on your path to the APR right now. The second part is to study. There are some chapters and some groups that say the first step is to apply for the examination. We actually recommend that you study first. And one of the reasons for that is that frequently family or work responsibilities get in the way, and it makes it impossible to really apply yourself to that study process. And then there's a clock, and Kathy will talk about that goes out. So it's better for you to go ahead and prepare when you feel confident. That's when you apply for the APR examination, and then you can step by step take the APR examination. So remember, study first. Kathy, would you share just a little bit about the examination?
Sure. The exam is, or the process is absolutely, Michael, the study first, but then once your application is approved, you have to go through a panel presentation and then take the examination. The panel presentation talks about your experience within PR and communications, and then you complete a questionnaire to present to a panel of 3 APRs. Once that is accomplished, you would take the CBE, as we call it, or the computer-based exam, which is multiple choice. It is currently it is 132 scored questions with approximately each time we modify the exam and refresh it annually, we add or subtract beta questions, which are unscored questions. Those beta questions are in there to identify what questions are really good questions and what questions are not good questions. So right now it's 37 on the exam. So maybe the next reiteration of the exam might be 40, might be 35, but it's definitely 132 scored questions. And of those 132 scored questions, you have to answer at least 82 of them correctly to pass the exam. We call that a cut score. We don't grade on an ABC kind of fashion like you were in college and grade school. It's a cut score process. So if you answer 82 correctly, you pass. If you answer 81 correctly, unfortunately, you don't pass. If you don't pass, you can retake. Always retake.
Excellent, excellent. And then, and one question we frequently get is that I had someone take the examination. They were surprised that the examination finished before they got to 132 questions. And I think the reason for that is that they actually passed that threshold of the correct answers. Is that correct?
No, there might have been a connection issue that should go to the 132 complete,
Okay.
even if you don't pass, even if you go above that 82. There might have been a connection issue. The exam itself is online now. It is proctored online. It is not where you have to go to a testing center, but a proctor is in your computer system. Basically, they monitor you through a system that your computer connects to. So there is kind of like a teacher proctoring your exam. It's definitely not an open book exam, but it is an online exam. In the very beginning of the online process, we had a connection issue, which I think that's probably what you're talking about.
Okay. So could you share sort of the nuts and bolts of applying for the examination?
Sure. As I mentioned, initiate the process whenever you want. So study first, be familiar with the KSAs, download the APR study guide and so forth. And when you feel like, you got, your knowledge under control in terms of what you think you might need to study, you can submit your application. The application is available online. It is an online application. You create an account into My APR, and you submit the application. It's $385 at the time of the application, or you can split your examination fee into 2 by adding a $25 application fee. So 385 plus 25 equals 410. And then you split that 410 into 205 each, one at the time of application and one after you would go through and advance through the panel presentation. That's very helpful. The splitting up of your fees are very helpful if you are if your budget doesn't allow a full 385 fee at once. You can split out the costs there. Once your application is approved, you have 1 year, and that's in bold right here, 1 year. That 1 year to complete the process, that means you have to go through and pass and advance the panel presentation and then take the exam. And I go back to Amanda's opening comments, that 1 year goes pretty quickly. You should, or try to schedule your time out, because things like your kids, things like your work assignments, things like outside weather, all of that contribute to managing that time frame. And that 1 year goes pretty quickly. So we would suggest that you kind of, budget your time frame accordingly.
Excellent. So, Amanda, we'd love to turn to you after hearing all of this and probably bringing back some memories of going through the process, and just share your perspective on going through that process, but also what I mentioned before about how the examination is sort of different than a university examination in the sense that it's very practical. It's about how you use the information, not just what the information is.
Yep, exactly. It's a great way to kind of differentiate it. So for myself, I actually did have to go to a testing center because it was pre-COVID. And so as an older student who had both kids in high school and college, to suddenly find myself in a testing environment, it was a mental challenge that I had to get over, even though it was something that, I practice this every day, built public relations disciplines for 2 global companies, but it was still, for a moment, I had this feeling of imposter syndrome. So know that psychologically, even though we might have a lot of experience, everybody deals with it, and you have to just kind of break that down and get over those mental hurdles, but know that you're not alone with that. And sometimes just talking to somebody, whether it's a mentor or a one-off, that's a really great way to kind of level set and get your feet back up underneath you. With regards to just the approach, and you saw on the screen that Michael showed, is the ARPI, which actually is an area that I absolutely love, because it's something that as a public relations professional, we do all the time, right? We do our research, we do our planning, we do everything all the way through the whole process. And then what I would always refer to as the postmortem: what worked, what didn't. If I had to do it all over again, what would I do differently? And I found that knowing that the big bulk of what I was being tested on was RPI really did actually help me determine exactly what it was that I needed to focus on, in conjunction with theory and history, and just kind of having that whole color and context around why we do what we do. So with regards to where the focus is and just kind of tying that all in, I know that you will find areas that you specialize in, or you find are more naturally easy for you to do, versus ones that you really have to focus on. And so know that, as Kathy mentioned, study prior. That year goes by very quickly, but do know that you're approaching this with an open mind, that you're basically just building your skill set and all of the knowledge that you have.
Excellent. And Kathy, would you share just, I know there are times when there are problems, and I think the biggest one is that 1 year limit. Would you share sort of what the options for people if they get into a problem?
Sure, thank you. The Universal Accreditation Board, or UAB, has a policy in place for those people who have advanced through the panel presentation and have not gotten a chance to take the examination by their 1-year deadline, you can apply and pay for a 6-month extension to take that exam and feel more comfortable in studying and taking the exam. For those that need that panel presentation and the exam within that 1-year time frame, between you and everyone on here, I think the UAB is a little flexible. That 6-month extension could be granted, providing that there is a good reason for the reason why you have not completed the information, the process within that 1 year. You would have to just send me an email first, and then I would get approval from the UAB to give you that 6-month extension to pay for and give you that 6-month extension. The fee is $100 for that 6 months. So it is an additional fee for you to get that 6 months, but sometimes it's a comfort level for you to make sure that your preparation is there and that, you feel more comfortable in passing the exam.
Excellent. So we'll go ahead and continue. So we want to ask you why you would why the APR is important to you personally. And I think this is really important as an educator because it's a long-term process. So if you think, gosh, my employer wants me to do this, but I don't really want to do that, it's going to be difficult for you to get through the material. But if you also think about the profession of public relations, you're a seasoned APR, you practiced for many years, you understand the history of public relations, you also understand that the APR is elevating the profession of public relations. Or perhaps you're just doing it for yourself. You're a sole proprietor, you need the credibility, you want to get the recognition at a large corporation with a professional certification. So we want you to share your motivation. And we stopped the Slido because I couldn't figure out how to make sure the slides were coming up properly. So please share in the text chat right now, what is your personal motivation? So just go ahead and share. Is it for you personally? Is it for your employer? Is it for the profession? Troy says it's for me. Professional development, promotion and confidence and skill set. There is a little bit of imposter syndrome that happens frequently in public relations, mostly because the path to public relations sometimes is not a straight path. So the APR can provide that foundation to say, no, I've checked all the boxes on professional practice of public relations. So that's really fantastic. Professionally, it's wonderful. Some great comments. Personal goal. Frankly, for myself, I just got another certification. Why do I do these things? And it's primarily I'm getting towards the end of my career, but I wanted to have that recognition from my peers in my industry. So that's fantastic. Great comments. So we also have lots of different study resources, and we're going to ask both Kathy and Amanda to share some study resources that they have. But we also have the KSAs that you can go through. And in the online study course, we have an electronic tool to take you through all of the KSAs and determine by score which KSAs are the weakest. And we ask you to study those weak KSAs, because those are your gaps in success for the APR examination. There are other resources, Jumpstart, Bootcamp, and PowerPlay. Many chapters have study groups. There are also conferences, both INSPRA and PRSA have an APR logo by some of the topics. Those topics are either taught by an APR or they are specifically focused on some of the KSAs. And then chapter study groups. Also, we really recommend getting a mentor or a coach. And then, of course, there is the online study course. People do report that this takes 6 months to a year to complete. And I'd love to get some comments from, and also the APR study guide is a great resource, and you can look at all of it. But what we found is the APR study guide has a tendency to be very very short in its description, and sometimes you need more context. And there's a short bookshelf of recommended texts that provide more context to some of the KSAs that you'll find in the study guide. Um, I'd like to stop just for a moment and get Amanda's perspective on previously on, and Kathy, on the study resources. Would you share just some of the resources that you used and also what you would recommend to others, Amanda?
Absolutely. So for me, mentally, so I did not do this online. It wasn't, I don't believe it was available when it worked with my schedule, but there was a weekend where all of us in the Portland Metro, Vancouver, Washington area got together every other weekend and studied all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And we had some fantastic APR fellows and other coaches and mentors come in and cover the different subjects. But not just having that study group, but also creating those connections with my fellow colleagues. You know, I have connections at TriMet now. I have connections at the Emmanuel Emergency, PR Center. All these different segments really enabled me to see the different aspects of public relations from different company, or not companies, but verticals, different markets, and how different aspects of public relations were important. And so that really helped me better understand the theories, helped me better understand why you would or would not react or respond in a certain way. Also helped me really in my RPI area when I was developing different campaigns and programs, et cetera. So I highly recommend not just the online resources that you have, but reaching out. And even if you're creating virtual study groups, is definitely get on one or two study groups so that you have exposure to a variety of different verticals and a different processes and the way people think and talk about stuff. Also, with that, a mentor or a coach. I know I'm mentoring two young individuals on different aspects of public relations and getting ready to set for APR as well as the APR plus M. And I know that it not only helps them, but it also reminds me of what it was that I needed when I was studying as well. So those really were the areas of resources, chapter resources that were so valuable to me that I highly encourage you guys to diversify as much as possible.
Excellent. And Kathy, there are two things that I'd love to ask you to comment on. The first is APR plus M, and the second is study resources that you'd like to share with the group.
Certainly. APR plus M is everything APR plus an additional military communication specific. So the difference between the APR and the APR plus M lies in the panel presentation section where APR plus M candidates are tested on all things APR, where they would present a public affairs plan to a panel of 3 APR plus M's and actually tested and evaluated on military specific rules and regulations for communicating for joint public affairs. So once you advance from that APR plus M panel, you then take the same APR exam, same APR exam. So APR or APR candidate, APR plus M candidates take the same written or CBE exam, but the difference lies in that panel presentation section. So the plus M is granted on the panel, and then the APR is granted when they pass the exam. It is intended for active and reserve military, or DoD contractors, or DoD civilians. So DoD is Department of Defense.
And how about study resources?
And thank you. Study resources, very similar between the two processes. I'm so glad to hear about mentoring coaching. PRSA has what we call APR chairs within our local chapters that can help you along the process. Some coordinate study sessions, while others can guide you in the direction of where you need to be and set up the panel presentations for you. We also have the APR study guide, and there is a link on our website for recommended texts. These are commonly undergraduate or graduate textbooks that cover the bulk, if not all, of the KSA areas that are evaluated in the exam. So you can kind of take a look at that to see what your preference is. Some read very, and I'm using air quotes here, textbooky, in terms of like really studiously textbooky, and others are more online for and read more like adult learning type of books.
Excellent. And we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit now about one of the study resources that we're responsible for, and that is the APR online study course. We use a case study approach, and this is to reflect the questions on the examination, which are very practical and professional use focused. We also have learning interactions. It's a completely online learning resource. You can go at your own pace, or you can go with a cohort. We have 3 cohorts a year: fall, spring, and summer. And we also ask you, as we go through every module that we go through, we ask you to apply what you're learning to practical situations. So it's really not meant to be something that is academic and sort of apart from professional experience. It's supposed to be in professional experience. And then finally, in the online study course, we do have coverage of all of the KSAs within the online study course. So it is comprehensive. When you get through the entire course, you have covered all of the material on the APR examination. It's not a short course. It's 10 modules and it takes a lot of time. So it's important for you to understand that it is a marathon, not a sprint. It's something that you will do as a milestone in your career. We do have the self-paced modules, and some people do want to go through the modules at their own pace, and they really just want to study it themselves. Others want to add those discussion groups and the weekly web meetings. So you can do a combination of the two. When you enroll in the online study course, you get the weekly web meetings as a added bonus. There is no charge for that. So I am the technical facilitator for the online study course. I know that some people don't like taking an online course. Frankly, we're here to make it as fun and as enjoyable and interactive as we possibly can. So if you have difficulty, you can always reach out to one of the technical facilitators. I am one of those. So we do use an active learning approach. We ask you to share your notes. We ask you to share book reviews, scenario practice questions, and we're going to get an example of that coming up. And then also those case studies, which is focused specifically on the ARPI process. We focus on that significantly because it is the largest area of KSAs on the APR examination. And then finally, before you even apply for your APR, you can practice delivering your panel presentation in one of our live meetings and get feedback, not only from other colleagues like yourself, but also from APR facilitators. They provide feedback and guidance to help you towards your success and towards your APR goal. The online study course is built in a learning management system. So when you log in, you can click resume course and it takes you back to where you were. You'll see little green check marks for the activities that you've completed, and you'll see a percentage complete. And then that resume button will, anytime you log into the course from anywhere, it will take you exactly to where you left off, because it's a comprehensive course. So there's a significant amount of material and it will take you right there. We use Quizlet and other tools as well. You'll find links to all of those on the readings page in each module. And Amanda, I can't recall, did you not take the APR online study course? I can't recall.
No, I did not. I did it in
Okay.
person. I did it in person and then used a lot of the tools like you were referring to, like the Quizlet digital flashcards as well as handwritten flashcards.
That's great. That's great. Um, and Kathy, I don't know if we want to mention anything. I didn't really talk to Kathy about this. Do you want to mention anything about next year or not?
I'm glad you brought that up. You talk about the cohort groups. I put it in the chat for one person who was asking. This will be the last cohort group for the online course. We're not doing a summer cohort group. We're going through a little bit of a change and moving this course from the facilitator with Michael into the in-house of PRSAs. So there's some logistical stuff that needs to happen, and so therefore we're not doing a summer cohort. But more to come once we have it ready to launch. In the meantime, we are doing a full spring cohort. You do have the capability of going into the system and using it individually with the cohorts and so forth.
Excellent. We'll have more on that in a little bit. It's really just a way of improving the course as we go forward.
Exactly.
So we have one activity that is really excellent in terms of helping you pass the APR examination, and that's the scenario question activity. And what we ask is people, when you're reading the study guide or when you're reading a text in the short bookshelf or even a handout or looking at a video about the APR, think to yourself, how would I be tested on this particular information? And we ask you, as a participant in the online study course, to share that question with the group, and then we discuss it. So the scenario practice questions is an activity that helps you understand how the questions are formed on the APR examination. And it really helps you understand how they reflect best practices. Well, that's enough of that for right now. Also, we really do help you understand that each question is based on one KSA. So it's important to really identify the KSA and then have your scenario and then your options. And we ask people to submit at least one question, although you can submit one in each module if you would like. And it really helps you understand the psychometrics of how the questions are formed on the APR examination. We got feedback when we first started this course that people said, oh my God, those questions I've never seen anything like that. And this particular activity has really helped people understand how to make questions for the APR examination. And it also helps you become familiar with them. So when you see them on the computer-based examination, the CBE, you're like welcoming to an old friend. So we have an example, and I forgot to get a volunteer. I would love to have somebody volunteer. Just type into the chat window if you would like to volunteer to read this, and I'll unmute your microphone and you can share this question with the group. Somebody who is in the online study course. There, Susan. Okay, I'm going to unmute your microphone, Susan, and you can share this question and the options. And I'm going to Susan, actually, Susan, I think this is you. I'm going to ask everyone to don't answer. We're going to ask you to type into the chat window and answer this question after it is read. And Susan, can you speak? There you are. Go ahead.
Okay. You are in a meeting with the CEO and the director of marketing for the organization. After the marketing director discusses a problem with their target markets, she proposes working with public relations for the marketing project. You express concern based on your understanding of the focus of public relations. You share that in differentiating between marketing and public relations professionals choose to A, build relationships and goodwill, B, is concerned with customers and selling, C, speak to the target markets, or D, communicate with publics and audiences.
Okay, now you can enter your response in the chat window, and just because we're looking for 2 responses, go ahead and enter your response in the chat window. Oh my goodness, we have a fairly smart group here. I don't see any disagreement. It looks like everyone is saying A and D, which is absolutely wonderful. There are lots of people who were on the street if they tried to answer this question, if they didn't have experience in public relations, and they would get marketing and public relations confused. So this is excellent. Let's go ahead and one of the things we do in the online study course is we share the rationale, the KSA, the source for where this question came from, and then an example of why this particular question is correct. In this case, we're not going to go through this because everyone got that correct. So, and we do also discuss the question. I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and share another question, and then we'll get feedback from our panel. So, Susan, I would love it if you would share this question with the group as well.
Sure. You are the PR director of a chain of fitness centers in the tri-state area. Your company has created a new exercise regimen called CrossBar that combines the best of CrossFit and the bar method. You have been asked to raise awareness of the new patented routine at your fitness centers. Which step would you take first to increase the rate of adoption of the new routine? A, send a personal email to all fitness center members telling them all about the new CrossBar classes. B, mail flyers announcing the new CrossBar class to residents living within a 10-mile radius of the fitness centers. C, contact 10 or 20 personal trainers and ask them what they think of the program and if they would recommend it to their clients. Or D, get in touch with major fitness magazines and arrange for interviews with CrossBar teachers to promote the benefits of the new routine to readers.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and enter your response in the chat window. Look at that. We have a little bit of disagreement, and that's good. And we love it if everyone participates. Sometimes you sit back and you're passive, you're really not engaging your brain. We like to get everyone engaged in these meetings and in these questions. Excellent. So according to the author of the question, remember that there is some disagreement on this particular question, and I have to tell you that they're written by your colleagues, so we do discuss them. So in this particular case, it is C. We did have a preponderance of C as the response. Again, this is really a smart group, and we do have a rationale, but I'd like to get some feedback from the panel. And Amanda, I would love, first of all, to have a comment about whether or not that looks like a question that you'd see on the examination. And then, did you agree with C being the correct response?
You're on mute, man.
Thank you. Yes, that definitely does look like a question that you would see on the test. And I'm sorry, Michael, I just forgot the other second part of your question.
Oh, the second part is,
You agree?
Yeah, do you agree
Okay.
with that, this being the correct response?
And yes, I would, because yes, you would definitely want to send out a personal email to all of the members of the club, but really go back to your ARPI, right? Before you start implementing and start reaching out to the publics that you are targeting, you want to make sure that you get the research and any feedback up front, because if you think through the situation, if you're going to ask your fitness pros who will teach these classes or who have been teaching classes. You get their perspectives because they're your experts. They will give you the information to answer any potential questions that clients might have. They will also give you a new perspective of the routine of the the whole program, how it's going to roll out, what the pros are, what the cons are, etc. So all of those answers will be right, but it's really what's the first step that you want to focus on. And Michael, and I'm sure that I've heard you say this in other times as well as Kathy with other meetings, is it's not a trick question. It's really forcing us to stop and say, yes, we're going to do all of this eventually, but where do we start? Where do we start efficiently to make sure that when we move forward, it's efficient and productive as possible?
Excellent. And Kathy, we do have a lot of people that don't pass the examination, but a lot of people that do. And have you had feedback from people recently about how difficult the examination is, how much study the examination takes to pass?
Yeah, I think Amanda had some good advice in terms of you want to start with for this particular question. This would be something similar to what you would see on the real exam, in terms of making a decision between, all right, so what is the question asking based on the scenario? And then you would have to make that decision. So it asks for what is the first thing you would do. As you would say, you could do all of those things, but the first thing you would do is the research, which would be in that answer option C. This is so that would be kind of like it. We do have questions that ask for multiple answers. So for instance, it would say choose two, and it could have been A and C as the correct answer. So these are the types of questions. If this question was on the exam and we had high scorers choosing A, that means something is wrong with the question that we need to look at because they're getting the question incorrect, but they're scoring high on the exam. This is how we evaluate the test questions as well. It's very, I tell candidates who don't pass not to fight with the question in terms of, well, I do X, Y, and Z, so this is the answer that we could do, that we should do it. Yes, you could do all of those things, but what would you do first? Or flip it around. What would you do last in an evaluation part, and put an evaluation answer option in there. So, I mean, those are the types of things you have to kind of look at and kind of think about first before you actually jump to an answer.
Excellent. Really good. So we're coming to a close. One of the tools that we mentioned earlier is the KSA self-assessment. It's a tool that we ask people to take 3 times as they study for their APR, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And it really shows your competence in the KSAs and asks you questions on each one of the KSAs as you go forward. And we also do want to encourage you to ask questions, but we're going to look in the text chat. And Amanda and Kathy, if you've seen questions that you'd like to address, feel free to bring those up when we get to that slide. Also, we want to sort of go through the process of getting your APR. First, identify your strengths and weaknesses. The KSA self-assessment is good. You could just take the KSA detailed sheet and go through and circle the ones that you're not familiar with. Set a target date. This is a flexible examination, meaning that you can enroll and take the examination at any time. It's difficult because it doesn't have a deadline. Many of you are driven by deadlines. And so setting a target date is something that really helps make sure that you're studying towards a goal. Look at the study materials, use those study curriculums, and then study especially the case study situations. So find a way to look at communication problems and develop a response based on the APRPREP recommendations in the APR study guide. And then you can use that same skill to prepare your panel presentation, and you can do that again before you apply for your exam. And then after you or feel confident that you could pass, that's when you could apply and go ahead and pass the APR examination. In the online study course, we do provide a weekly study sheet, a task sheet with links directly to the study course so that it really keeps you on track towards your APR goal. And one thing I'm going to say, especially since that last question was about gym and fitness, there are a lot of people that think they can get in shape by getting a gym membership. It doesn't work that way. You get a gym membership, but you have to apply yourself every day. And that's the same thing with the APR. You can get your APR by first finding a resource like the APR online study course, but then applying yourself every single day. So let's get some final comments from our panel. Kathy, I'm happy to have you share some final comments before we leave at this point.
Just if everyone, has questions about the process, if they need help in finding their APR chair or, any kind of process questions, I'm here. My general email is accred, ACCRED, @prsa.org. That's easier to spell than my first and last name, so I'll give you that general email.
Great. And Amanda, how about you? Any final sort of thoughts that have come up and last words of wisdom for the group?
I have zero doubt that if you guys want your APR, that you guys can do it. I mean, if you are working in public relations and you deal with the requirements of PR and you work with marketing and you work with different managers, executives, and within your company or organization, you are doing this every day. It just is an opportunity to put some oomph and some street cred behind it and really get that final discipline behind what you are doing each day. Use the resources that you have, break it down. It's a big problem. We break down big problems all the time into doable steps for different teams. So do this for yourself. And again, I have no doubt that you guys can get your APR.
Great. I just realized that I did not type the URL for PR accreditation. There's the correct URL for that. We want to really thank all of you for being with us today. If you have any specific questions, now's a great time to type those into the chat window, and we will address those as we go forward. We want to give a big thank you to our panel. Amanda, I'm really happy that you joined us again, Amanda, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the online study course this spring as well. Thank you so much. And Kathy, it's great seeing you again. And
Yes.
Someday I'm gonna have to see you in person again.
Yes, I know. We're online buddies, exactly. But great to see you, and thank you everyone for taking time to learn about the APR and thinking about bettering your profession, bettering yourself, and becoming an APR accredited.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And we did have one question that just came in. Are the web meetings recorded? And yes, when you get into the online study course, we have an entire year, 48 web meetings, all of them addressing specific KSAs. We have an index of all of those. And so each of the web meetings, if you miss one, we have not only an audio recording, a video recording, and the slides available for each of those meetings. That's within the APR online study course. So we're hoping that you'll join us. We're starting the spring cohort for 2025. Here we go. And remember, again, it does not require an APR application. If you have already applied, feel free to join us in the APR online study course. And we look forward to hearing about your success. Thank you all for being with us today. And we look forward to chatting with you again, hopefully in the APR online study course. Bye-bye, everybody.